Welcome back, coaches. This is the Football Coaching Podcast. I am Daniel Chamberlain, co-host, here with Joe Daniel, as always.
What's up, Coach?
Coach, it's another fantastic week. Spring football is in the air. I think everybody's done now. A lot of spring games were this last week or so. Maybe some complete. I think Oklahoma might be completing this week because baseball didn't get over that long ago. So some teams wait on their baseball team to finish.
Well, we don't have spring, so.
Yeah, I don't know. There finally was a change this year where freshmen, like rising freshmen, so 8th graders, could come out for spring ball for the varsity sports. Up until this year, it was like, well, they're still in 8th grade, so they can't do varsity sports, so they can't do spring ball when every other sport is over with. I finally came to their senses and were like,
Yeah.
they're high schoolers now. Like they can go to team camp in June, but they can't go to spring practice in May.
Yeah. We had spring ball, growing up in Georgia, and I mean, there was 8th graders were allowed to do spring, but I was at a big school,
Right.
so it was just freshman spring
Yeah.
training. So it wasn't like we were, first time up there with the big kids. Like we never saw them.
Yeah, you're not getting smoked by some senior who's about to go play at a college or some crap.
Yeah, and the only flaw with it is, as tends to happen with freshman coaches and stuff, like the people that coach us in the spring weren't the people coaching us in the fall. I don't think, so that was the only. Wasn't a bad thing. It wasn't like but it was a little bit of a mess spring that year. But
yeah, I've just bought into the philosophy that, like you said, it's just spring balls for the coaches.
Really should be. I mean, it's
the kids get some stuff. Bristow this year, I've talked to Coach Palmer, and he said, like the kids remember a lot from last year. So last year his install was terrible, and this year he's like, oh, like we're on day 3 on day 1 because the kids just remember it all. So it's been great for him. You know what I mean? Really getting to kind of fast forward through. So let's get through our power minute here. So first of all, thank you guys for coming back to another episode of the Football Coaching Podcast. We're talking about having an undisciplined defense, and really what we're going to be talking is fixing a couple big things, and that's going to be the tackling and then the execution of your defense. We're going to get into ASKA. We're going to end up getting your players aligned correctly, so getting them into position, and then mentally preparing your players for adversity, because we all know that I've been on one of those teams where we're just not mentally strong, and the first sign of adversity, everybody begins to quit, and then a lot of solo artists and the kind of team thing goes away. So fixing your discipline through multiple aspects there. If you didn't listen last week, we were talking about special teams aren't special. Like if yours aren't, how to fix that, how to go about minimizing schemes, just get one thing put in, get really good at it. Lots of great talking points there. And then next week we're going to talk about losing close games, which will be a fun spin because we've talked about like inability to stop people, inability to score, inability to beat teams that are just way, have more athletes than us. So getting to talk about the close ones where we keep getting there and we just can't close the door. So I'm pretty excited for that conversation next week. But for this week, man, let's jump into our level up. Let you go first here, sir.
my level up is a weird one this week, and I was like, is this a level up? But I mean, it's one of those things that I've wanted to do for a long time, and I don't know how far I'll go with it, as we talked about pre-show. I've been like looking at, I have all these streaming services. I don't need them all, but they all serve like one purpose. Like
right.
One of the things is they all have like one of the kids shows or two of the kids shows. Like Max serves a purpose for me because of AEW. And that's all on there now, but like Prime is obviously Prime. Like we're gonna have that. Yeah. Netflix has like some of my son's favorite shows on there, and then Peacock has wrestling as well. So we have a reason. I think that's the ones that we have, and like ESPN Plus. I mean, that's kind of the stuff that we have. Like Hulu's included and all that, and like I don't care about Hulu, but Disney Plus. We have to have Disney Plus,
right?
For many reasons. So, like, I'm like, I got to use these for like some others. Like, I got to start watching some stuff on here, and so I'm like, what should I watch? And I'm like, I look around. I've never watched Lost. I watched the first episode. I liked it a lot. Like I didn't know what to expect. Like honestly, when all that was going on, I was on a very strict, like, no any, like, out, like, the only thing I knew about it was, I guess when it came out, I was teaching, and so I would hear, like, the teachers in the teachers lounge, like, talk about it over lunch, and I was like,
Right.
I don't know anything about it. But, like, I otherwise, I totally out of, like, the pop culture scene, right? I knew nothing. And, so I didn't even really know what to expect. I knew they were on an island, and that's about it. And so the first episode I'm watching, and I was like, okay, it's kind of, oh, okay, that's different. And I'm like, I am interested to see where it goes. Like, but you know, it's one of those, like, again, I've never watched it, so I don't know. I think it says 9 seasons um, that are on there, and I know there was some frustration. I think I remember, I've heard, like, there's some frustration with the ending or whatever, but, like, there's 9 seasons. So that's a big investment. And also, it definitely seems like one of those shows that you don't just put on in the background. Like,
Right.
my wife watched, and I watched a lot of it. My wife watched all of Arrow. And she just kind of had it on in the background. And she would have it on in the background so much that she would have the same episode on, like, a couple times just on in the background. And so she kind of knew everything. And I kind of did the same thing. But I'm not sure that throwing this on in the background is the path. So it may end up like so many other things that I never actually finish it, and I'm okay with that. But I'd like to watch enough to get the gist of it, and,
For
like,
sure.
maybe just watch a YouTube video after I've seen it. Like, I want to get to a point where I'm like, all right, I get it. Let me watch, like, a YouTube series that just, like, summarizes the next 7 seasons or whatever, and then move on.
Right.
Like, which is what, like, Walking Dead, I did the exact same thing. I watched 2 seasons, liked it, and then I was like, "Do I want this for the
Not that
next
bad.
do I need to know the next 8 seasons?" The only one that and of course, it didn't turn out, and I watched it live at the time, and I just, for some reason, canceled HBO and then, like, dropped off of it. The only one that I would like to go back and watch, even though I know that everybody says the last season was a disaster, was Game of Thrones, because I was super into that. And then, I get distracted, I cancel HBO, and I'm like, I'll get HBO back when the new season starts.
Nah.
And then, and by that time, I was like, I don't really need to. And I wasn't, whatever night it was on like a Sunday night or something. And I was like, there's no way that I'm going to sit down and watch this live. And it was one of those, everybody was talking about it. So I was just like, I just won't know what's happening. So we'll see what
That
happens with this
happens.
one.
Some of those really long ones. Lost, I never finished. I think I got 4 seasons in when I was overseas once, and then fell out of it. Walking Dead's the same way. Like, I don't know. I have a hard time completing those. They get very repetitive, or it's extra drama I don't need in my life, and I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, I'm not
It
going back.
feels almost like it was drawn out, because, like, it's one of those things, like, we had a plan for 3 seasons or 4 seasons, and then, like, oh my god, everybody likes this thing, so, like, we gotta stretch it, and then it just
Yeah.
starts to.
Everything's anticipation, and you're
And
just
the other end of that is, like, a show like Freaks and Geeks that I loved, and it was 1 season, and I watched it, and I'm just, like, devastated that, like, this is it,
because I didn't read keep going.
devastated, like, why is this all there is?
Why are
Why?
shows, what was the quote on Batman? "You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain." Like,
But
that's all
acting,
shows. It's
and
either
then
they
not
cut
that
it too
I'm not
short.
mad at any of these shows for being long, it's just, it's very daunting to try to catch up on, or not even catch up, I mean, at least they're over, and, of course, now granted, I'm not gonna watch Lost with, like, my son hanging out, but, like, I don't watch a lot, but, like, you know, I've seen every Big Bang Theory 16 times. It's like,
For
I
sure.
could probably, instead of watching that, put an episode of Lost on and finish it. But, like, again, that Big Bang Theory is always on, but it's always in the background. It's like,
100%. That's funny that
I
we
can just
both
put this on
watched
for
it.
background noise, and, like, it's perfect. Perfect background noise. I'm not gonna miss anything. Like, every once in a while, there's just, because I never watched it live. I don't watch anything live.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, there'll be an episode that I'm like, oh. I don't remember this, but like it's usually a later episode. So we definitely had the first 6 seasons on DVD, and back before everything was on streaming, I think we had it on DVD and would just put the DVD on for however long.
We from 8 p.m. I joke all the time. 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. is MASH, and from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. is Big Bang Theory, and that's just what's going to be playing around the house. Like,
yeah,
100% background. No, I'll put it on in the other room and come in here and work on the computer, and it's
really,
like it's just comfort music. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, so, you know
Big
what? I
Bang Theory's our
never
jam.
have anything on during the day, but I mean, I could. There's certainly like, but I listen to podcasts. I listen to audiobooks. So like, if I'm not in the office working, then I've got a podcast or an audiobook on. If I'm like cooking in the kitchen, like cooking lunch, or getting breakfast ready, getting lunch ready, feeding the dog, walking the dog, which that's basically everything that I do other than lunch. I mean, that's pretty much other than work until it's time to go to the gym. And then like I know people do things like they put it on like on the treadmill or something. I don't do that. Like I don't. That's not my.
I just don't treadmill. So that's
not my workout. Like
that's.
Let me tell you what. First of all, I'm in I will, if I work out at home, I will put something on. In fact, I watched the first season of Umbrella Academy, which I really liked, but then I fell off second season. I put that on in the basement when I was working out at home after my son was born, because I was working out a lot at home. But like my gym doesn't have a TV. Like there's no TV, and I don't do treadmills, and I don't do exercise bikes. I don't do anything where you would watch. And if I did, I would probably listen to a podcast or an audiobook.
My level up is another Joe Daniel exclusive, and that is a throw a grenade in the room. And
I just had this conversation today with him. Yeah,
a few weeks ago we started trying to reduce stuff around the house, and I had found that like I was reducing a ton of stuff, but I also caught myself just tossing stuff into my closet. Like, I'll get back to that later. And I went to get dressed the other morning, and like I can't fit in my walk-in closet. Like, I opened the door, I get a foot in, and I have to reach around the stuff that I have piled, and I was like, this is out of control. So I grenaded the whole thing. Just took everything out, threw away like half my clothes, or most of them went to like a donation box. Some of them were just ratted out and got thrown away. Man, did it need it. And I reorganized it, and I don't know that it's any better, but it's new. And so it feels like, in my mind, I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm keeping this looking good, because it had, one, there's more room, because I did throw away so much stuff. I used to ride a Harley. And so, we'd go around Harley shop to Harley shop and buy a $50 shirt at every one of them. And like at the time, you're like, oh, yeah, I got this really cool Harley Davidson t-shirt collection. But I never wore them. And then they're just in my closet because I paid $50 for them. So it's like, I can't get rid of a $50 t-shirt. Like, who's going to do that?
Right.
So I downsized from, I don't know if I had 8 in there or something. It was too many. And I kept 2. And that's like the 2 from Hawaii, because my wife and I went on a vacation there. So they're a little more symbolic. And I actually wear them. They look good. Some of them are just ugly as sin. Like, you just have them because they're a Harley shirt.
It's the way wrestling shirts are.
Yeah. I fixed that pretty quickly with just, they do the poker chips at every shop. We started doing that instead of t-shirts, because like this, I could have $10,000 in shirts, and I don't ride a Harley anymore, and I don't go around people that ride Harleys hardly. Like, I've got 2 friends maybe that have bikes. Anyway, so it was good just kind of, I still got to find some stuff. I had like gun cases in there that had just been sitting empty. A lot of my military gear was in there, so I've got to like figure out where I'm going to store that. But I can find a more long-term solution than stubbing my toe on it when I go in to get a t-shirt, right? Like in the morning. So yeah, it was good to just toss the grenade. I immediately then came to the office and was like, oh, you're next. So I did a little updating. Got this, I've got some rugs that I picked up in Iraq or Afghanistan. Maybe Afghanistan. I remember what animal they said they were made out of, and I'm pretty sure it's illegal to have. So I can't like really remember, you know what I mean? I guess they tend to DNA test on it. They'd be like, you have an illegal rug or whatever. But anyway, so I've got some really fancy rugs, and we put them down at one point, and then I immediately realized, like, between dogs and kids, that doesn't work well. So now the office is just off limits to dogs and kids, and so I'm going to try to put my really fancy rug down again and see how long it lasts. We'll see. But Anyway, there we are. There's my level up. The grenade in the room.
Yeah, I did a through Strategic Coach Dan Sullivan's group that I talk about a lot, and had a little intensive today. A little they call it a monthly power up, like refresher, motivation refresher type of thing. And the topic was actually about like motivation and stuff. But in one of the little breakouts, I was talking about how like we were talking about what motivates us, and I was like, I mean, if I can't find something new to do, I will. I told him, I said, if I can't find something, like what motivates me is building something, like as far as building systems in my business, building a new product, building what's this and that. And if I can't find something that new to build, or I know like the last thing we need is something new, I will take something we have in existence, blow it up so it can be rebuilt. And that's, it gets you motivated. I mean, it gets me motivated. Probably not everybody. Some people will just be like, just appalled, because I know that sometimes I do that, and at the end of the explosion and rebuild, I will have to tear it all back down to what we had before, because we didn't need that much change.
Yeah. I got you. It's a good place to be, is to have that. I put those things off until it's way too overdue, and then I do it out of frustration, and I'm angry. But that helps me, like I said, throw a lot of stuff away. So it works out okay. Sweet, man. Well, let's real quick, I'll remind you guys to refer a friend, take the podcast into somebody if they need to throw a grenade in a room, or maybe they need to go back and remember what it's like to watch the first episode of Lost again, or watch it for the first time. Or any of the other crazy things we talk about on the podcast, any of the football topics, shoot them an episode. Let them know we talk a lot of things over here. So, Joe, let's pay the bills, man.
All right. Blow this one up sometime soon too. The difference between a championship defense and a defense struggling every Friday night is not just talent, and it's not luck, it's the system. Without a system, you scramble every week trying to fix problems on the fly. Your players get confused. Your assistants are on the same page, and your defense is constantly playing from its heels. I've worked with over 10,000 football coaches, and many were making the same mistakes. They're overcomplicating football, running a stack of plays with no reasoning behind it. They're just calling front stunts, blitzes, and coverages from the seat of your pants. Once we get those coaches putting a real defensive system in place, everything changes. Your players play faster, coaches coach with more confidence, and you start winning more football games. That's why I put together my latest free guide called What You Need to Know to Build the Ultimate Defensive Football Coaching System. Inside that guide, you will get the blueprint for building a defensive system that works, so you can simplify your playbook, get your players to buy in, and take control of the game. Download your free copy right now at joedanielfootball.com/system to take the guesswork out of coaching, build your ultimate defensive system, and turn your football program around this season. Again, that's at joedanielfootball.com/system.
I want to ask you a question. Are your athletes fast enough to win every single game on your schedule next year? The reality is they're probably not. Most players aren't. And most coaches, all coaches kind of got the exact same problem. We've talked about before. Not enough numbers, not strong enough, not fast enough. The issue is we're still leaning on outdated speed drills that don't actually translate to the field. You can have your kids in track all off season, which is kind of the old method, right? That's the old, everybody calls it the proven method. You can run sprints in the spring and the summer until the sun goes down. You can live in the weight room. But if your athletes aren't getting faster where it matters, in pads, in space, on game night, then you're wasting valuable time and reps. That's where athleticspeedmovement.com changes everything. You get real football speed development, not theory. 47 years of proven drills, proven progression, 12-week program, 2 times a week. We're asking for 20 minutes a day to start off your practices. It's built specifically for our game, for the game of football, with, like I said, progressions, drills, and a program that works for every level of play. It doesn't matter if you're a varsity coach, if you're a youth coach, if you're at the collegiate level and you're listening, this works for you. All this was designed by Del Basquette. He's a guy who knows the game at the highest level, starting as the very first NFL speed coach, and it's backed it by results on fields all over the country ever since. So don't keep guessing with your speed work. Go to athleticspeedmovement.com right now and start turning your team's speed into an actual competitive advantage. athleticspeedmovement.com. Let's go to part 1 here, Joe. We're talking about a team that's undisciplined, and I know that undisciplined defense can range on a variety of topics. It could just be continuously don't fit the run correctly. It could be giving up too many pass plays. It could be kids that just don't do what they're being told to do. It ranges a lot. Kids that lose their crap between plays just because something didn't go well for them. We got to talk to Noel Mazzoni on the other podcast the other day, and he said something that was really, really neat. And he said, and of course he's an offensive mind, but he said sometimes the defense wins too. You know what I mean? And on defense, we have to remember that, and we have to be able to instill some of that stuff into our kids. Is sometimes the offense just calls the perfect play. Whatever we had was sometimes it can be the kryptonite of the offense, and sometimes it can be their superpower. So when we talk about fixing discipline, if we start with tackling and execution, which that's kind of our first talking point here. Where do you start when you're trying to fix tackling and execution?
So everything starts with, as it always does, everything starts with the Coach Simple philosophy, and it starts with the discipline, the systematic approach of the coach to building the defense. And a little bit of like what you talked about. Like I had a coach who's a longtime JDFB coach. He's doing a great job. His youth team, he's doing a great job with this team. They're in Europe. That's why they're playing now. And, he understands all of the principles that we teach and all the things that we do. And he played against a team that had a monster. A monster. Like one of those that you're like, all right, let me see it. Let's birth certificate. Let's go. And his kids made mistakes, but he immediately starts not immediate, but like he starts talking about, we thought about doing this front or that front or calling this blitz or that blitz. And I'm like, nothing was wrong with any of that. Initially, the fits were all right. The tackling technique needs improvement, which is a known, something known. But again, every other kid who carried the ball, it wasn't an issue because they had 2, 3, 4 guys getting to the point. We talk about, we coach force. If you learn force from our umbrella run fits, we use the phrase force a change of direction in the ball carrier, right? He's either got to cut inside, cut outside, or he goes straight at you and you tackle him. Well, this kid was going straight at the force kid. The force kid's a 1. The kid with the ball is a 2.5.
All right.
And so he wasn't changing direction, and he was just going through the kid. Well, now your run fits are blown. Not because of, now, again, tackling technique could have been better, but like that was nothing of a scheme. There was no scheme that's going to fix that. You're in the right spot. And so that does happen. But the improvement, and that's one of those things where you like, if you take the time to do all of this stuff, you're still going to run into things. But you as a coach, probably more importantly than your players, have got to know exactly who you are and what you're trying to do. I think there's a lot of coaches who think my defense is undisciplined, when the reality is what they mean is my defensive players are undisciplined, but the reality is truly that your defense is undisciplined. Your defense is now I'm not talking about the coach that this coach gets it. Like there was a momentary lapse and we're fine because of a player, really. And like you said, that happens. Sometimes they just make a play. Sometimes they just got a player. Sometimes and then we have to figure it. Now we have to problem solve. Like, what's the next thing we do? Okay, we can fix our tackling technique. We got to get some ankles down here because nothing else is working. But what I find with a lot of coaches is they're like, my players. This is a lot of coaches that come into JDFB, and they go one of two ways, because when our coaches come in, we do a 35-point diagnostic on it. We go through and we say, this is what's going on with your program. We look at we listen to the questions. I read the question, or I send questions. I read answers that you send me, and I tell you my honest opinion on it. And I've done 757 of them as of right now. So I've got a pretty good database. And so I'm going to tell you honestly what I think. And we have coaches that go in two ways. And I know this for a fact, what's going to happen. Because I could do this different, right? I could go, oh man, you're right. Society today, these kids, they don't focus. It's like, no, your defense is unfocused. Your defensive plan is unfocused. You have a bad defensive plan. And coaches will go one of two ways. That's either, thank you, I need help with that, and they stay. Or that's not what I want to hear.
Right.
And they'll leave. And that's okay. You can do either one. But the reality is that the first thing that we have to address is what you think is simple and easy to understand and well organized and makes all sorts of sense in your head. Very likely isn't either making sense to your coaching staff, which means that it's then getting communicated incorrectly to your players, or if you're teaching directly to your players, they're not getting it directly from you, whatever the teaching. There's a problem with the teaching, and the way that you fix a problem with the teaching, we are lucky. Coaches don't want to do this sometimes. We are very lucky. If you teach geometry, the curriculum, your state curriculum, your state testing, whatever you have, your requirements at your school, maybe your county has a countywide final exam, you must meet what that curriculum says, right? You must do what that curriculum says. You can't go, man, these kids aren't getting it. I'm going to slow this thing way down, and I'm just going to make sure these kids know what a triangle is. Like, time's passed. You got to figure out, bro. You got to figure out what a triangle is, because we're already on. We're on to Pythagoras, and we got to go.
Right.
But you have the ability to teach football at a level that your players can understand, and we can simplify football down to your base defense until your players understand it. And you're going to be much better off making sure they understand what a triangle is than going straight to Pythagoras. But a lot of us want to go straight to the blitz package, the exotics, the multiple coverages, the multiple fronts. We want to go to, and we don't have a foundation. And so the very first thing that we do, and the very first tool that we use, is we get our ASKA. All right, alignment, stance, key read, assignment. So even before that, we can back up another minute. What matters more than anything else in your defense? No, none of you should care whether you're a 3-5 or a 3-3 or a 4-2 or a 4-4 or a 5-2. None of you should care what the numbers are. Like, are you a spill team? Are you a funnel run fits team? Are you an umbrella run fits team? Are you a box team? Like, whatever words you want to use. At the level that we're talking, high school, youth, our international teams, it's all true. Small college, mostly, not all, but there's some really big high school areas where it's a little bit different, but that's usually not who we're working with, right? It's a relatively small number. And even the NFL is getting back to this, right? We saw the NFL go to become a passing league, and like that's kind of, that's not the case as much anymore. What matters is, can you stop the run? And that comes down to your run fits. And the numbers, whether you're 4-2, 3-3, 3-4, whatever, that doesn't impact your run fits. All it does is tell you roughly where those guys are going to line up, which we're going to get into in a minute. But so the first thing you have to have in place is your defensive run fits. We have a system called umbrella run fits that can be applied to any defense out there, unless you want to base out of cover zero. And then I'm going to argue that you got a flaw to begin with. It's working for you, great. But most teams it won't. So the first thing we do is we figure out, what is our run fits? What are our rules for our run fits? What are our, we spill, we force, we have out, we have spill, force, alley, stay in coverage. Each one of those things means a thing, right? And so then we build the ASKA, which is alignment, stance, alignment, where are they going to stand? Stance, how are they going to stand there? Key read, who are they going to look at that's going to tell them what's happening on this play? And assignment, what do they do once that guy tells them what's happening? Once that guy tells them run or pass or run away or run inside or run outside or whatever matters to me, and how they're going to react to that. So the only way to have a disciplined defense is to start with These are my run fits. This is my run fit principles. This is what we believe. This is what we do. This is who we are. Not we're a 3-4 cover 3. Like that's not the thing. Okay. This is my run fit principles. This is who we are. This is what we are going to spill the ball. We are going to force on the edges. We are going to have somebody come downhill and fill the alley. That is who we are. That is what we do. And again, you may have different run fits. I don't give a crap. If they're not working, you should probably, check out what we got because it's pretty simple. We can teach it in 10 minutes. But once I got that principle in line, in place, I know this is who we are. Then I go to my ASKA. This is where we're going to stand. This is how we're going to stand there. This is who we're going to look at to tell us what's happening. This is what we're going to do once we find out what's happening. And I build that entire ASKA for each of all 11 positions. And obviously assignment and alignment and stuff will change based on some things. But I build out those rules. I build out what we're going to do. I build it out for my base defense first. I build that thing out for all 11 positions, built 100% around my primary defensive run fits job. And usually, if we start breaking into that, we'll find some problems in the way. If we don't have that in place, we're never going to have a disciplined defense. It's just not going to happen. Again, you may use different words. You may do different things. You may use different key reads. But if everything isn't built around that, like we can disagree on the right alignment for the force defender. But if both of us picked that alignment that we want because we believe that is the best place for that player to be, to force, to set the edge, to force, whatever we're going to call it, and we don't let anything else influence us until we make sure that we've got that taken care of first, then both of us are going to be better off.
Yeah.
Even if one of us, whether we want to say one of us is right, one of us is wrong, or we just have a disagreement of opinion, but we are solid in our commitment to this being the reason. As soon as you say, this is where I want my force defender to be, because it puts him in a better position to fold in on the inside run plays. Like now you have compromised the number one job. And I see it a lot, but now you have compromised the number one job. Now, I will argue that my position that I choose is the best position for him to force and still be able to this and that and this and that. Because he has other jobs that he has to do. He does have to be able to fold in. He does have to be able to play the flat. But I put him in a position where I think that it is like optimal for him to do all three, really. But that's, again, I have commitment in what I'm saying. And when I teach to those players and when I say, this is where you stand, this is why you stand there, that commitment, that belief, that I know what I'm doing, whether I do or not, is going to lead to a disciplined player because there's no gray area here, right? Until he's ready for gray area, there's no gray area. There's gray area when he's ready for gray area. But if he's not ready for gray area, this is where you stand. This is how you stand there. This is who you look at. This is what you do.
When you start learning defense, it seems so simple. But they're legitimately, we're talking about, it's not necessarily what you understand, it's what your kids understand. And they don't a lot of times see the big picture. I believe you've even talked about you didn't understand football when you came out of high school, right? Like I had no idea.
Nothing. I knew
that
nothing.
My job was to be the four. Here's what I knew. Sometimes if we say wax, you're blitzing off the edge, go eat the quarterback up. That worked for me. Otherwise, you're dropping to the flats, get under number 2, and I forced some interceptions. Not by me. Generally, the guys would overthrow me and hit the free safety. That was kind of my understanding of defense. I just was not a high football IQ kid. I was very intelligent, very smart, book smart. I just didn't.
Same, yeah.
Whether it wasn't ever taught to me in that manner because we didn't, coaches didn't think about it like that back then, like we do now. I want kids to be essentially a coach on the field if I can get them there without compromising anything else. I think back then it may have been a little more of the yes man approach. Like you just do what you're told because that's what you do. But I don't know. It just seems like the kids won't understand that if you're off one gap, we're in a very bad place. Right, coach, I filled a gap next to this guard. Well, great, thank you. That happened to be the linebacker's gap. Now we have a linebacker that fills open windows, so he hopefully can make things right, which is what I love about your spill to force system. But I spent half of a season with a defensive line coach that was telling his guys to go the opposite way of whatever I said.
Mm-hmm.
We looked ate up. We could not stop the run.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets back to what kind of, talk about, well, now my force has to fold in because my D line's going away from the play or whatever, the opposite way of what we're trying to do things. And now everyone has to fold in a gap and I don't have a force player.
And that's where it becomes a disaster, is when instead of fixing the problem because I have an understanding of the base defense and the run fits and everything, instead of fixing the problem, I break something else to plug this problem. Yeah. Right? It's the typical the double wing defense, right? The one not the one that we use, not the Charger Bolt system that we have in JDFB. If you need to stop the double wing, come see me. Okay, come see JDFB and we'll set you up. Works for we use it for every front, doesn't matter. But I've talked before, Tim Murphy showing, doing a 50-minute clinic on his passing game, his play action passing game, which was his quarterback, who is a lead blocker on primary run plays, shot putting the ball 30 yards down the field to wide open receivers because the solution that coaches came up with to stop the double wing, which has 10 gaps, unlike any other formation, was to bring the corner out of coverage and get him to fill a gap or to force. We see the same thing with teams that are defending triple option, especially if they've never played a good triple option team. For sure. Who's got the pitch? Oh, the corner. Well, who's got keep pass? Because that's not going to work, right? You can't do both. And so, yeah, you're exactly right. If you don't have this conviction, you're going to have an undisciplined defense. And you have to have the conviction to say, look, the force is the force. The force can't fix the spill. Because if the force fixes the spill, he spills it to nobody.
Right.
And sometimes you get away with it because you've got an elite free safety who ends up basically replacing, or you get away with it because you've got a corner that's coming out of coverage and they're not attacking that because they're not, because they don't have a system on offense. Because you have a system on offense and you're playing against a cover 3 or something like that, and the cover 3 corner comes up and makes a tackle, but it's
let's go.
Like you're not waiting. You're coming right away. You might run it one more time just to see, is he going to do that again? I have people on the sidelines. I'm like, I want you to listen for that corner to get yelled at for not coming. If we're running the toss well, we're listening to hear the coach on the other side yell at the corner for not making the tackle. And I'm like, 100%. Yes.
Now it's time.
Let's go. So, yeah, so you've got to have that conviction, that discipline, that understanding of what your defense is, who the roles are, what the roles are, because you can't fix problems by breaking other stuff.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I think it's where a lot of coaches go, is we'll solve it this week with this thing, and then they never get back to really fixing it. Well, we won't see that again until they do. So I think that,
and then your defense just spirals into that undisciplined mess. Bloated mess. And especially if you, the worst thing is if you out talent some teams. I talked about this with the first year of this defense coordinator. We started out the season 4-0. We were giving up less than, after 5 games we were 4-1, but we lost the 5th game 14-7. So we got 14, and that put us after 5 games at an average of 10 points per game. And in the 6th or 7th game, we gave up 56 because the level changed. Those first 4 teams we were better than, and then we lost 5 straight, and then we won the last one. And the fact of the matter was, I didn't know what I was doing, and I, as a defensive coordinator, because I didn't understand run fits, and I got into very bad habits of using blitzes, which was the common way to use the 3-5-3 back in the day. Right. By just, thinking I was just going to blitz at where I thought the play, I could just guess where the play was going and blitz that way. And that was how it was supposed to work. And that's not
my first couple of years.
if everything has to be a guessing game, then there's a problem. It's and I started to learn that years later that, you know, we use all three levels of defensive play calling, but they're not problem solvers in and of themselves.
Second part, we're going to talk about getting players into position. So I know, we've done some studies on this. We had it brought to the podcast by a guy here in Oklahoma talking about essentially his statement then, and I think you've reevaluated on your film and proven it again, but something like 70% of all the touchdowns against his team that season, or in that strand of seasons, were due to bad alignment. So they were given up simply because a kid did not align where they were supposed to be. And you went back and proved it with your film.
Well, we actually, and I think maybe because we stress this so much, we actually only found it was about 30, I think it was 38%. Now, we've only done a study on 2022 film. We're going to go ahead and do a study on 2023 and 2024 and maybe go back further depending on how much film we have. But like, that 2022 film, for example, that includes coaches like, that's a lot of film from, some of our coaches that we talk about a lot, like that have been on the podcast, Con Chase. That includes Bill Weiss and his team's film. That includes Oosberg, Brian Willoughby and his team. Those are coaches who really take alignment seriously. And so that may be why our numbers are not, the same, because a lot of our coaches, we hammer it so much at JDFB that I don't know that we can recreate the same thing that Lynn could. And if you want to listen to the episodes, Lynn Shackelford, I think he's been on a couple episodes. I know he's been on a couple episodes with us. But that was the study that they did. And I, maybe if we went back earlier, maybe we went back to 2018, 2019, when we didn't have this all quite as laid out. Maybe if I look at some of my teams, because, I don't practice what I preach. Or I only coach one position. I've been an offensive coordinator for so long, like I could probably go back and look at ours. Like, I don't know if we can recreate it, but I definitely believe that the first thing that we do is stress alignment. And this is where you stand. And as a coach, you may feel like you're a first-year coach. This is your first year being a defensive coordinator. This is your first year coaching your position group. And so if we've gone through the first part on the ASKA and you're like, God, I don't have all this right now, I think we can get you caught up pretty quick. If you're using, if you're looking at JDFB, I think we can get you caught up pretty quick. But the fact is, if you don't do anything else, I firmly believe that, like, our coaches that we broke that film down on, they didn't have 70% caused by alignment, not because because Lynn's film was an anomaly. It's because we were already stressing it. Probably because we had already talked to Lynn Shackelford and we were already like, we've got to hammer this.
Right.
And so, we already put that in place. Like, I imagine if he goes back and looks at his film, more recent film after that, right, he probably doesn't have the same numbers, because once you realize that, you put an emphasis on it. So the reason we bring this up is, if you want to do one thing to make your defense disciplined, it is have strict rules. You stand here. If you've got a tight end, you stand here. If you've got one receiver removed, you stand here. If you've got two receivers removed, you stand here. If you like your rules, if it is man, if it is zone, if you do nothing else in your defense, I strongly believe, and like I said, we did the study on our 2022 film from our coaches that are in JDFB Platinum, game film analysis, and we didn't come up with the same numbers, but I think it's because we stress it so much. We still had close to 40% of touchdowns. And again, it's explosive touchdowns, so we don't include like the 1 yard line or something. Right. Probably be even better to go and look at explosive plays and just say, give me every play over 20 yards and pull it that way. But maybe we'll do that for a future film. We do these in our JDFB film rooms that are inside JDFB premium coaching systems. as a coach, no matter how experienced and inexperienced you are, either years on the sideline or years coaching your system or years working with your players, I think that this is so valuable, number one, because it is important, but number two, because it is easy. This is the easiest lever. Out of the alignment stance key read assignment, this is the one that takes no drill. This is the one you can fix pre-snaps from the sideline. Johnny, back up. Just back up. Like, widen out. We do it a lot, but like, it should be like, I want to say, like, when I yell at one of my overhang safeties and we're a base cover 3 and I yell at him, I don't start with back up or widen out or whatever. I start with 5x5 because that's the rule. Because he, of course, if he's got a, if he doesn't have a number 2 receiver moved, I just go, hey, 5x5, and he knows what that means. And he knows, because we've done it a lot, he knows about where that is. Now, if he doesn't fix it, then it's freaking widen out. Like, what are you doing? Like, because now you're just ignoring me, I think. But if you have these rules in place, and 7x2 inside leverage, the number 1 receiver for the corners, right? It's cover 3 rules, cover zone rules, really. 5x5. We talk about inside hand down, inside foot back. That's stance, but we talk about the alignment being the nose on the V of the neck, because they get too loose and now they're standing in the gap and now they can't get a physical key read. So we put the nose on the V of the neck. We put the strike point. We put everything very specific and very detailed. And the linebacker's heels at 5 yards. And the same thing, nose on the V of the neck of the guard. And if you don't have, and not only do I know that alignment, but I can tell them why. Why do I need to stand here? So that you have room to get your read without getting caught up in the wash, depth so that you can get your pass drop, blah, 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 blah. Okay, whatever it is. I know we have all of those things in place. And you, as a coach who wants to get a disciplined defense, how many defenses do you see lined up the same way? Not every time, obviously, you call different plays, but seriously, how many defenses do you see lined up the same way every single time, lined up correctly every single time, that are then undisciplined after that?
I would say fewer.
I would say close to 0.
Yeah.
That are lined up correctly and then do everything else wrong, right? Or just freelance from there. Like, that is the first step to discipline, is line up correctly, get lined up, do all of those things. Coaches always ask me, like, what if we don't want to flip? I'm like, if it's a choice between flipping to get a better player in a situation to make a play, or not flipping, whatever position, if you don't flip your linebackers, or you don't want to flip anybody, or whoever it is you don't want to flip. If it's a situation where it's between flipping no one on the defense and just playing it with whoever is wherever and getting lined up correctly, versus flipping and your guys get lost and confused and they don't get lined up correctly, don't flip.
Yeah.
This is more important. This is the only thing more important than this, is don't let your best player stand on the sideline. Okay. Like, unless he's done something wrong or he's hurt. But like, even then, like, like, it's not if he's injured, but if he's hurt, like we got to talk. Yeah. I mean, like, this is so in terms of being a football coach and being a defensive football coach, you can have a disciplined defense, cut all the other crap and put all of the emphasis on alignment until you are consistently getting 90-95% correct alignment. Everybody can coach this, and every player can do this. You don't even have to, even if you have a player who can't do it, you got a defensive lineman who is just uncoachable, or he's got a learning disability, or he's whatever. Then the linebacker behind him has to learn to put him in the right place. Okay. So we only have 10 who actually know where to line up, and we got one who's eating for 2, right? Fine. That's fine. We get him in the right place. We are so much better, 10 times better. And you will immediately double the effectiveness of your defense if you get everybody lined up correctly. And you will immediately look disciplined, and everyone will be lined up correctly before the snap, and you're going to be way more disciplined.
Yeah, and I think it's good to point out, like, we don't pick these alignments just at random, right? Like, you talked about 5x5 until you need to move it for some reason. No number 2 receiver or trips or whatever, right? There's reasons to break.
Well, there's alignment rules. Yeah.
Right. There's alignment rules.
And there are rules. There are reasons to break those alignment rules at times too.
They're they're there for a reason though, and it when you start just having, it's not, I just feel like some people just have bad alignment rules,
Oh yeah,
and
oh, yeah.
or they're just coaching it because, oh, this is the 3-4, so this is where you stand in the
They're
3-4,
the way they always did it. Yeah.
right? And so I think that's another key piece here is your defensive scheme and philosophy and your run fits may all be great, but you're telling kids to start at a bad spot, right? It could be your linebackers are just too close, whether it be the outside guy or the inside guy. If your inside backers are 2 yards deep, maybe they can't read nothing. How are they
No,
going to play
hands are on them
football?
before they can hands are on them before they can figure out what's happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
If your safeties aren't, I got really into my free safety just splits the outside receivers. Like where you are for all them 11 guys in the middle, your job comes after they've made their execution. So be there where you can kind of help take away everything. I just these rules that I think they have to evolve, and they haven't always been that way. So I think you'll fix a lot of this execution and tackling problems. Once again, going back to the last point, by just getting your kids in position where every time the ball is snapped, they actually have a fighting chance. You know what I mean? They're not playing from behind. Kind of moves us to our last point here, Joe, and we can move a little quicker if we need to. I know that we got on in that one, but talking about mentally preparing your players for adversity.
I think you jumped down one episode on that. This we should be on coaching players to do their job.
Let's do that. That's even better.
Yeah. You jumped a line, I think.
See, Joe gave me a whole list of these things to type out, and then I apparently read the grid wrong. So there you go. Yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah. So it just goes to the umbrella. So going back to the deep. So we talked about ASKA, and again, ASKA needs to be built around your umbrella. And the most important piece of the ASKA alignment stance key reassignment is the alignment. Every coach can coach that alignment. But what we see is players become undisciplined when things don't go exactly as they wanted. I talked about the coach who's done a great job coaching up the alignment of his players. And then they had a guy who was a stud, and things weren't going like they wanted. And all of a sudden, alignments start to change, right? Players start to jump inside or jump outside or do. So the thing that I love about our umbrella run fit system is that, well, first of all, I think no matter what you do, I think if you start with alignment, you can see when discipline is starting to slip just by the alignment. So again, I can know what the ideal alignment of your defense is, and most of our teams will have the right alignment the first play of the game, right? That's when I always get the screenshot. Like here's the one I'm going to use for this web clinic, because that's the best it's going to be, unless there's something they didn't expect. And right. So you can then see when discipline is fading. Now, discipline fades for multiple reasons. It's not because your players are undisciplined necessarily. Sometimes it is that your players don't believe in the system. Sometimes it is that your players don't understand the system. It's very, 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 very rarely. If you believe that your players don't care, you're believing the words that are coming out of their mouths. They say that stuff because they care very deeply. When they say, I don't care, they care very deeply, but they're hurt. They're embarrassed. They don't know how to act because they're kids. We've proven this over and over and over again. They care very deeply, but they're hurt, they're embarrassed, and it's easier to say I don't care than to say I'm doing my best and it's not good enough.
Yeah.
You can see when alignment starts to slip that discipline is slipping, whether it's your players not believing in what you're doing, whether it's that you haven't established it well enough with your players exactly what they're supposed to do. What it really is often one of two things. Things didn't work right. Actually, the first thing is fatigue, right? Fatigue, just the little details start to slip. Things that were, automatic before aren't as automatic as they were. And that happens to everyone. Like if you give me, if you ask me to do 5 reps on a snatch, I've been doing that for the last 10 years. I'm going to do it with a 80%, 70% weight. I'm going to do it the exact same almost every single time if I'm having a good day. Okay. But if you ask me to do 3 sets of 10, even at a lighter weight, or excuse me, 10 sets of 3, I can't do 3 sets of 10 snatches. I don't do 10 snatches. But if you ask me to do 10 sets of 3, things are going to fade like towards the end. And I've been doing it for 10 years and it's just one movement, right? I'm not even going to get the setup right as things start to fade. Like the easy part, that's the alignment part of it. So you think what's going to happen with a 16-year-old who's been doing this for a month, 2 months, 3 months? The alignment's going to start to fade. The mind is going to drift. That's why you don't wear your kids out in practice and then try to teach them stuff. Like the mind is not ready to take that stuff on right now. Doesn't mean you don't wear your kids out and work, but you don't try to teach them new things at that point. So what I love about our Umbrella Run Fit system is that not only does it establish why that alignment is important and why that stance is important and why this is the key read and what it answers all of the why questions, but in a 10-minute session on a board, and I like to do 10 minutes on the board and then go out and teach it 10 minutes on the field, of how everybody fits into this defense. You can watch me present it. You can watch me teach it in JDFB over and over and over and over again. You want to watch me teach it 15 times, you can probably find it at least that many on the field too. And what I like about it is that, let's say that you're a youth coach and you've got dads that only show up once a week and they don't really know your system. First thing that they need to know is this: look, if you want to be a dad to show up, help once a week, sometime during the summer, I need you to just come in for 10 minutes and let me teach you this. And let me talk to you about this, because what you'll understand is where you fit in the defense. This is your job. You are spill, you are force, you are alley, or you are stay in coverage. If you're backside force, then you're counter reverse bootleg. So I can teach you those roles and how you fit in the defense and very quickly get you to understand fatigue. I can fix as best I can, but fatigue is fatigue and it's going to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to turn these kids into machines that never get tired in a game. The only way that happens is if they aren't putting out full effort, right? You're just fatigued in the fourth quarter of a close football game, period. No way around it. You may be less fatigued than the other team. That's the best you can do. But I can teach you this and you can understand how spill, force, alley, and stay in coverage work together, and understand that if you are the spill and you start trying to run outside because the force guy isn't getting it done and you're just going to start running outside, I can very quickly show you why that's not going to work, because you're going to force it back to where you should be. If you're the spill, if you're the force and you start to jump inside because you think the linebackers and the defensive line aren't getting it done, and you're going to go in there and get it done for them, I can very quickly show you why that's not going to work, because you're going to spill the ball to nobody, right? If you're the corner and you think that the strong safety isn't doing a good enough job of forcing the run, and so you're going to start jumping up there and doing it for him, I can very quickly show you why that is not going to work out, because they're going to throw the ball over you. And instead of us giving up 8 yards on an outside run play because you came out of coverage, after the ball had crossed the line of scrimmage like you're supposed to and became secondary force, you decided to jump up there as soon as you saw that run action. And now the ball goes for 75 yards and a touchdown because it was not run action. It was play action. And so I can teach you that. And so if we can teach our players how they fit into the big picture, like you talked about, Daniel, I never got taught this. I never understood any of this. As a senior in high school, I cut the center's legs. That was my job. If he steps right, cut his legs to the right. If he steps left, cut his legs to the left. I was a 2-gap nose guard. And I don't know, everybody else had to figure that out behind me, because that wasn't my problem. They were 2 good linebackers. They played a lot more football than I did. And that was their job to sort that crap out. Luckily, I didn't have to figure any of that out. I didn't understand what I was doing. I didn't know any of that. Nobody really bothered to teach me. And I wasn't concerned about it. Maybe they knew, because maybe it mattered to them. I don't know. I'm not saying anything about my coaches. I'm just saying I didn't know. But of course, I was not in a position to go running outside. Now I played defensive end, and I got yelled at before that. And I got yelled at plenty of times for staying outside when I was supposed to be spilling. right? And I didn't know what that meant. I
Right.
know block down, step down type stuff, and I didn't know how it tied into the greater good of the defense. I thought, like, it looks like he's going outside. I'm going to go outside to get him, and then they go back inside, and everybody else is outside where they're supposed to be, and I'm not inside where I'm supposed to be, and there's a problem. So we can very quickly teach this with the umbrella run fit system and get your players to understand their job and their role. More importantly, we can get your position coaches to understand, even if they're inexperienced, even if you have inexperienced position coaches, even if you have young position coaches, even if you just have a dad who shows up for an hour once a week, but then wants to be on the sidelines and yell during the game, but he doesn't really understand what's going on. Now I can show you what's going on within the defense. This is what's happening. You're yelling at this guy. Drives me nuts when one guy gets yelled at and it's not his fault, right? And because I understand the scheme and the system, and somebody else is yelling at that kid, because that kid usually is not secure enough in his conviction of what he's supposed to do to have any adult who he respects yelling at him. And worse, if a adult he doesn't respect is yelling at him, because that's going to send him off on a whole different problem of discipline. So again, we have this system in place where we can teach our guys very quickly, this is your job. This is why your job is what it is. And this is why if you go do somebody else's job, which creates an undisciplined defense, we're going to have holes and you can't do that. And we have very quick answers for all this stuff. Does that mean it never happens? Of course not. Sometimes kids just see shiny object,
Yeah.
The big one that we see all the time is the strong safety who's supposed to be the flat defender on a rollout decides to come up to contain the quarterback.
Go play quarterback.
And what he does when he does that is he vacates a 12-yard deep out route behind him. And it happens over and over again with just because that's the shiny object, right? I got to go get the quarterback. He's going to run. First of all, we have two guys who are on that, who should be on that. And when you do that, he doesn't have to run now. At least make him run, right? If you're standing 10 yards deep and he runs, a line where he's going and meet him on the way. If I've dropped off 10 yards deep and he takes off running, okay, I meet him at 4 or 5 yards, right? Okay. If I jump up, he throws it over me, it's at least 12. And if the corner's back is turned because he's got a guy running a go route down the sideline and we've got a bench concept, we have a problem, right? So
for sure.
Yeah, I mean that's how you get the players now bought into this, is because they understand their job.
I think we've kind of beat it to death already, but just kids knowing, I'm a lot more into this, like teaching kids the why behind all this, and I love that the umbrella does that. I think of it as a very simple diagram that I can draw on a whiteboard and then immediately walk out and put it out on grass and get it installed, and kids can just understand. And it doesn't matter what numbers you use, like you said, to start the show. You can be 3-4, you've got an umbrella. 4-2-5, you've got an umbrella. 3-3, you got an umbrella. It doesn't matter. Kids need to know if they are spill, I'm just doing what I'm told. The ball might come to me, but it isn't always going to come to me. But I'm doing my job. I'm keeping the ball headed to the sidelines and not getting to turn upfield until it turns into my alley player. Like that's, and if we can teach the kid the why, then maybe we stop some of those. Like you said, Joe, I'm supposed to be block down, step down, but instead I want to step there and play the running back in space.
I'm going to block down, step outside.
Yeah.
Try to run around the kick out and, all those things that work. And a lot of this is reinforced by, and I'm sure, of everything that we've talked about, college coaches and NFL coaches probably have to deal with this a lot. A lot of this is reinforced. It's reinforced in youth football where things just tend to work out because the execution isn't as good. So they'll get away with things there. Or if they have coaches who, if they have good coaches, they still will get away with it. If they have good coaches, the coaches won't let them get away with it. But and teach them why that, that worked out, but it's not going to work out. I always say we don't yell at them in the moment, but we talk about, hey, it's not what we're supposed to do. But if you get to do it over and over again, it's the defensive version of the problem that we all have in high school when the star rec league running back gets to you. He's gotten away with bouncing everything to the sidelines and running around the edge for his entire youth career. Yep. Because nobody taught anybody to play the edge out there in a proper alignment. They're all playing a 6-2 and trying to force the defensive end with the fastest kid in the world, just bouncing it around them. And so it's the defensive equivalent of that, right? That won't work at this level. I'm sure college and NFL coaches have to deal with it all the time of like, buddy, with this thing, you go up a level. I mean, you can look at the UFL, right? Not close to the level in the NFL, right? Not close
Right.
to the level. These guys are not on. Many of them have been, but they are not currently on practice squads in the NFL. They're not just not starters. They're not just not backups. They're not on practice squads in the NFL. But they were all stars in college.
Right.
And so when you go from college to the NFL, the speed of the game, the detail, everything goes up massively. When you go from, I know like anybody who's played college football knows that like when you went from high school to college, like a week in college, you're like, oh my God, I could go back to high school and just dominate everybody. I know so much more right now than I did. And so like that level goes up. You're having to fix things that they used to get away with. And you have to be able to explain it and teach it. This is why you can't do this here.
Yeah. And I know that this really isn't the point of this episode, but this just shows once again why stop putting your terrible coaches or the new coaches on your sub-varsity teams, right? Like your program would be so much better if you just get someone down there who can actually coach and solve these problems before they get to you. And actually, even if you lose every single game, I am so in love with the Kenny Simpson way that he does sub-varsity games, and that is we do not give a crap about records because no one else does either. It is all development league. I don't care if you're JV and we're 0-10 in the season. It's everyone's going to play, everyone's going to get coached, and our best coaches are going to go down there and coach it. And it just leads to so much more development. You got to get buy-in because that's somebody's baby boy out there that's getting beat for the, if they play for you for eighth,
Yeah,
ninth.
there's a line there where it's like that's one of those things that you've got to have it established. You've got to have it like, and of course you don't necessarily lose all 10 games by adopting this philosophy, of course, but
No, not at all.
But you have to. Everybody has to be bought in, including the players. Of this is the job here. This is the role.
Yeah.
But I've always stood by, and I still believe that unless you, and we did this in my high school when we had 100 guys, like I think unless you have an absolute abundance of good coaches, at least a good chunk of your practice time should be JV and varsity together. At least JV and varsity. Now, I can understand at a very big school when you got hundreds, like separating the freshmen, but the JV guys that you intend to be on varsity next year, that should be the purpose of your JV program. They're gonna replenish your varsity. Like you may not have that many freshmen going straight to varsity, so that's okay. Right. But again, you should support that program. Don't just put them off down there and say get down there and let us know. Like you need good coaches at those levels. But I haven't coached at a place with a freshman program in years, and I always think the JV should practice with the varsity, just for nothing else than if I can take my two best coaches, like my two, but which would be dumb because I would be gutting my varsity program, right?
For sure.
But if I took my two best coaches and there's just two of them and said, go coach these 30 guys, you two on your own. Number one, I just took my two best coaches from my varsity. But number two, it's two guys trying to coach every single position. It's not a good fit.
Right.
Like, it's not a good idea. So, like, if I've got 5 good coaches, experienced coaches, then they should be coaching, 5 position groups on offense and 5 position groups on defense. Each one of them should have one, and they should be coaching the JV and the varsity. Now, I wouldn't. I say that, but also I wouldn't have the same guy be the play caller. Like get one of your young, let one of your guys call the offense or the defense. But
for sure,
that's kind of like spring training, right? That's development for the coaches.
Yeah, and it's so beneficial.
Yeah,
especially if they know the why. I mean, I've gone out there and called power right and toss left and throw this, and not knowing why. Yeah. I've done that in a sub-varsity game, right? and it wasn't beneficial. So make sure they're following some type of system as well.
When I was at Ellsworth and we would go play, we would take our red shirts and our backups because we had a lot of red shirts who were from out of state but could not play because we have a 12-player limit. So we would go do scrimmages against some of the Division threes in the state, and then we would do the same thing against. I think we did against like Iowa Central with their backups and stuff as well. And it's the same kind of thing. We're getting kids film because some of them were never going to get to play, but they were good enough to play Division two. We just get them film on an exhibition game, and a lot of times we could get them a Division two scholarship or something. But I would often get to, or we would split. Like one of us would call first half or the first quarter. We'd flop quarters. And for someone like me who had been a defensive coordinator for a couple of years, but I wasn't good at it by any means yet. And Ricky Kuhn was the defensive coordinator on the varsity, but like that let me like sharpen my play calling, even though, I wasn't the defensive coordinator. Like that's extremely valuable.
That's awesome. All right, man. Let's I think we checked all the boxes. We'll start closing things out here. First, I want to remind you guys to, good listeners of the podcast are also sending these episodes out to others. That's what normal thing to do here is take this episode, take another episode you liked. I had someone bring up the PJ Gibbs episode today. Like, find one that you like. It's a topic you like, and send it to a coach. If you're looking for, that guy was looking for a 3 safety. Joe and I aren't 3 safety coaches, but we brought a guy on that talked about it. So go grab that episode. If you want to look at power, we did a whole season of how to stop this play with that defense or how to beat that defense with this play. So you can go back and find any of that. Send those out to the guys that and that are in football, and help them problem solve and help us grow the show. Today we talked about, fixing, tackling, and execution, undisciplined defense, fixing an undisciplined defense with ASKA, getting your players in the right position, and teaching players to do their job, not the mental thing. That's next week. I give you a sneak peek of next week, which works. Last week's topic, we talked about our special teams not being special and how to fix that, how to get those hidden yards, how to win the special teams game. Next week, we're going to talk about we keep losing close games. So finally figuring out how to close the door, how to win, what if that's a mentality thing, whatever it is that your team needs to gain. We'll be going over some ideas there. Let's pay the bills one last time and get out of here, Joe.
Yeah, I do want to mention, like, this is, as we talked about in JDFP premium coaching systems, we do 3-3. We have 4 defensive systems: 33 sack defense system, 4-2-5 defense system, 3-4 defense system, 4-3 defense system. Each one of those has, and of course, each one of those has certain mentality. It's not about the players necessarily, although some coaches, their mentality is like, we can get into that when you sign up, because we do a full diagnostic and everything when you come in, and we do a one-on-one call and everything to make sure we're going down the right path. All of our defensive systems are based on umbrella run fits, ASKA, and we have alignment rules for each system. So all 4 of those systems, and again, a 4-4 is a 4-2, a 6-2 is a 4. So we basically got you covered no matter what. We don't have anything that bases out of the bear front. That's the only one that I don't. We can line up in a bear front in all of those, but nothing bases out of a bear front for us.
Right.
The 3-4 would be the closest. But any of those are going to build on these principles first. And then we have a lot of coaches who take those and become multiple. And so, we have coaches who start in a 4-2 and then they become multiple 4-2, 4-3-4 and all this sort of stuff. So all of our systems are built on this. So if you're looking to learn more about this, do go to Joe Daniel Football. I would definitely start with the guide to building your system, which we'll talk about in a minute. But get them onto JDFP premium coaching systems, and you'll see like how these things are built. And you'll also, like I said, we do for all of our new members, we do a 35-point diagnostic. We do a roadmap to victory quick start, where I lay out things to look at first, and then we do a one-on-one private coaching call with me, where we lay out this is the roadmap, this is the system. So if you're not sure what system, if you're not sure how to build your package, we do a one-on-one, and then we support you the whole time with monthly in the off season Chalk Talk Q&A sessions. We have the Chalkboard forum, and then when we get into season, we do Chalkboard Forum, we can ask questions anytime. When we get in season, we do every single Monday night. We do Chalk Talk Q&A calls where you can ask questions for your game planning and everything. So you're supported the whole way through with this. So if any of this sounds like it's like you don't want an undisciplined defense anymore, we got you covered. So,
Yep.
But first place to start, if you haven't already, is to go download that free coaching manual, what you need to know to build the ultimate defensive football coaching system. And so inside that guide, you're going to get the blueprint for building a defensive system that works to simplify your playbook, get your players to buy in and take control of the game. Again, you can download the free copy of that right now at joedanielfootball.com/system. It's going to help you take the guesswork out of coaching, build your ultimate defensive system, and turn your football program around this season. So if you want to get started anywhere, get started there. If you're ready to move, if you've been listening for the podcast for a while and you're ready to move to actually really, truly implementing this stuff into your defensive systems as we get into the 2025 season, that's the place to get started now at joedanielfootball.com/system.
Awesome. Want to remind you to go over Athletic Speed Movement. Guys, it is the place to go right now to get football speed training. It's very, very... you're not going to go, once again, send your kids off to track and getting them being fast in a straight line and good sprinters is great. And they're going to learn some stuff. They're going to keep competing. But when it comes to being fast on the football field, it's just not the same. It's not football speed. Athletic Speed Movement, let Dell Basquet's system work for you. It's too simple. I mean, I think Dell's still charging like $3,500 or something to bring him in for 2 days to show you the system, and then he just kind of that's it. He gives you the plan, and he's gone.
Probably more. Dale's not a young snapper anymore. Getting him out there it's worth your money, but it's money.
Yeah. So we've made that much more reasonable, much more affordable for coaches across the nation to be able to use the plan. Go use it while it's available. Also remind you of patreon.com/Chamberlain Football Consulting. That is where I am helping coaches do all the peripheral stuff. If you need to make graphics for your team, you're looking for someone to settle in and do, I can take care of them all season long, all year long, whatever you want. I've got kind of plans for everything. If you want to learn to do them yourself, if you're a coach that's not as computer literate and you're looking for just updated how to keep stats, how are we tracking things here, there, whatever, I can help you out with that stuff. So just holler at me over on Patreon. Sign up, shoot me a message. If there's not a tier for you, then I'll make one for you. I'll make your own custom tier. We'll figure out a pricing that makes sense, and we'll set it up. All right, Joe, what sales are opening or closing here in the next 2 weeks? So it looks like June the 5th-ish.
Nothing that week. That is my vacation week.
Let's go.
That is 100% my vacation week. So we'll be having in the next, I don't know which one is up first, but in the next, let's say 60 days, we'll be opening up the offensive play caller system and the defensive play caller system, two separate systems for just really, really deep dive into the mindset, the thought process, the logic behind what you're putting on your play call sheet and then what you're choosing in the moment on the sidelines. It's really, really, guys talk about, it's because it's beyond scheme. It's beyond any of that stuff. It is really, really deep dive. You got to have your systems in place already. It's both systems are very, very in depth, multiple modules of that thought process of what do I call right now? And that if you've coached at all any length of time, that panic moment of like, oh God, what do I need to find? What do I call here? And like, it's fine when everything's working, but we need to have a system for picking that next play call. And that's both of those systems, offense for the offensive play caller, defense for the defensive play caller. Each one will be opening up. They're open now, but we'll be having some specials on those. They are currently open on the store page at joedanielfootball.com/store. But we'll be opening up some specials on those over June and July, getting ready for the season.
Love it. Social media wise, I am at Coach Chambo OK on Twitter/X. You can email me at chamberlainfootballconsulting@gmail.com. And I already told you about the Patreon. Jump over there. I do have a website, chamberlainfootballconsulting.com. It's a great place to go to find the podcast. I'm going to dig into that this summer and make it more something. I don't know what yet. We're going to make it more something. Joe, where can we find you, sir?
Joe at joedanielfootball.com is my email address. And I don't do like football questions and stuff there, but if you have questions about the site, questions about, anything like that, I save the answering football questions. I'll let you know if we've got something for you. But I save the answering football questions for our clients. But you can also check out, we have lots of stuff on the Football Coaching Podcast, clips and everything. They're on at Joe Daniel Football on Instagram and TikTok, Facebook.com/Joe Daniel Football. And then, of course, the podcast is available on YouTube at joedanielfootball.com/YouTube. It goes up on Thursdays on audio on your podcatcher of choice, and it goes up the following Tuesday. The video goes up on YouTube. I think I hit them all there. X at Football Info. I don't know. Whatever.
There we go. The podcast is at the FBCP. If this is your first time listening to the Football Coaching Podcast, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. You can find us on your favorite podcatchers, mainly Spotify, Apple Podcast. We're asking for reviews. Guys, if you listen, please go leave a review. You don't even have to put like the comments. It's great if you do. Give people specific things that you liked. But we want your 5-star reviews. Please go leave those. If it would be anything lower than that, holler at us. Maybe it's something we can fix. Maybe not. I don't know. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Football Coaching Podcast. And remember, coach simple, play fast, win. And remember,